Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Minahan and her panel of guests bring you insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for soul growth. Come journey with us through astrology's energetic cycles and get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
Hello, I'm Sue Minahan, and this is Talk Cosmos, and it's with our wonderful new panel that we started this year that has a little mini-series about the elections. Now, our focus is really just to illustrate what are the astrological dynamics. We all have our opinions. Granted, we are, in the USA, rather a Sagittarius lot. If you look at the Sibley chart, we have Sagittarius rising, and that's why we have to voice our opinions. However, like all debates or analytical newspaper articles, they can give the facts, and you, the illustrious reader, the listener, the participator person that we are focused upon, can come up with their own thoughts about, what are these dynamics? And what is it about? With all that, I will say that on my phone today, it was happy birthday, Kamala. It is her birthday. What do you know? You could look at the transits today and see what you think about things. But we are now ready to pile in about the 7 swing states with our great panel. We have 2 names, one for the mini-series US24 Elections, Astrological Perspective, but we are now ready for US Global Currents.
Examining significant United States domestic politics and foreign affairs through the astrological perspective of the celestial map of the sky to understand the impact on each individual around the globe, this is your U.S. Global Currents panel.
I'm Sue Minahan, founder of Talk Cosmos since 2018. I'm an evolutionary astrologer, consultant, speaker, writer, vibrational astrology student, Dwarf Planet University graduate, Kepler Astrology Toastmasters Club charter member. I have a fine arts music degree plus a certificate in jazz. I'm an artist, musician, and certified color energy life coach. Especially, I love mythology and esoteric philosophies.
I'm Michael Bartlett, master metaphysical astrologer and the author of 2 books, Astrological Mavericks, You Have What It Takes to Change the World, and Astro Theater, a revolutionary look at the ancient art of astrology. Given my core energetic training, highly intuitive nature, 4 decades of business experience, over 2 decades of astrological wisdom, all give me an extensively resourced toolbox. I focus on esoteric and traditional astrology while incorporating the depths of the outer planets. I offer experiential intensives, mentoring, groups, readings, speaking engagements, and workshops. I was the past interim president of Kepler College and still do classes for them.
I'm Robert Pizzetti, professional consulting astrologer and the visionary behind Deep Earth Astrology and the Deep Earth Astrology Tarot, a divination tool and teaching aid that integrates astrology, herbalism, and natural reverence. I specialize in vibrational and psychological techniques and infuse my practice with a deep connection to nature's spirituality. I'm currently the Grand Pendragon in the Ancient Order of Druids in America and the director of the Magus Gathering in Gore, Virginia.
I'm Justin Crockett, Elzie, an archetypal Jyotish astrologer, yoga and meditation teacher, and author. I combine both Western ancient astrology and modern psychological astrology with Eastern Vedic astrology, and I specialize in predictive, electoral, and karmic astrology for individuals and couples. I also do in-depth astrological research into arcane astrological concepts, focusing on the mystical, occult side of astrology.
And I'm John Chenworth, a Seattle astrologer with more than 25 years' experience. I use a blend of evolutionary, traditional, and archetypal techniques and constantly attend workshops and lectures to further hone my skills. I hold an MFA in Poetics, an MA in Teaching, and an astrological diploma. I've lectured at NORWAC and served on the WSAA board. I have worked in general and special education classrooms, both as a teacher and mentor. I also enjoy reading, penning poems, riding a bike, and going on road trips around the great state of Washington.
Rock musician Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention says,
A mind is like a parachute. It doesn't work if it's not open.
Yes, indeedy. Hello. Rob, Michael.
Hey,
Justin,
guys.
and John.
Hey.
Yeah. Well, here we are. We've been prepping for this. We started in April 21st with the Chiron return for the US chart, which is still happening with our next time in November around the 20th. And then we came up with both the conventions. And here we are to the swing states. Hallelujah. Well, let's dive in. We've organized it so that, we have a little bit of prep time to talk about. Okay, we'll do that. First, for everybody, and I don't know why they sort of changed it, but you can look at their websites, which is Core Michael for Michael, and Justin Crockett Elzie and Skypath Astro for John, and for Rob, Deep Earth Astrology, and me, Talk Cosmos. So what's a swing state? Our friendly Al tells us that it's when both sides it's open territory. They both have support. There's no one way or the other, because we have, and shall I go on? Because we have electoral system, and we'll go into that in just a sec. And again, mine didn't, this didn't come out the way I quite planned it, but it's okay. These are the 7 states involved, and I did them according, can't even see them, darn boo hiss. Well, at any rate, they're according to when they entered the United States as a state. So it's Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, and at the bottom, good old Arizona. And it's amazing. Pennsylvania was the second, and patterns here, and Arizona was the 48th. Anyway, we have 50, as we know. That probably didn't make any difference. But people can look at this if they want to know the exact times and they want to drop the charts themselves. The electoral college system, perhaps we can chat a bit about this, but that is why we have swing states. It's not the popular vote. It's controversial since the Constitution. And of course, the Constitution developed after the Civil War, after the Revolutionary War, because their first Papers of Confederacy, I may have that name wrong a little bit, didn't have strong enough central government. However, once they did decide to do that, the states had been established, and they said, hey, we have rights too, so we have the Bill of Rights. And but it's driven into our Constitution, and therefore it takes a huge amount of people to shift that. As far as votes go, although there've been more attempts, I guess, than any other amendment possibly, but we just can't seem to get there. Okay.
I'd say let's just jump into the charts.
All right. Goody. Go. We have a few out-of-bound planets, so thank you for that. And here we have a list of them. Everybody but, when I say of the 7 plus the November 5th chart, the US chart, and both candidates, only Michigan doesn't have any. And that's of the ones that we have determined, which are a lot of the asteroids too. So that's sort of interesting. Okay, and I did mention them on here, but oh boy, I guess it did show up. Well, yes. Somehow my screen and this screen aren't quite compatible, but on the left side, and I put the faces so you can see which chart is which. On the inside, it's going to be the candidate. On the outside, it's going to be the state itself. We're talking about Pennsylvania here, 19 delegates. So as we can see, so that we have some system, because the outside is going to be exactly the same. For instance, we see in Kamala, Saturn is approaching her, applying to her natal, her part. That's a lot with, what would you say? A lot of structure, a lot of determination, but it's with Uranus, and that is a lot of action. I'm just starting the conversation off. What's your thoughts here?
Being from Pennsylvania, there's a lot of interesting things that I'm seeing on the ground here between both candidates. And, I think that, Pennsylvania is something where Kamala is investing a lot of time right now. She needs to kind of stay here and be disciplined. And that discipline is going to really need to express itself through those Saturnian ways. Like, if you look at Trump's chart in particular, he has, the Sun and the South Node are reflected in both charts. And that's very interesting. And certainly, we have to consider that part of his relationship with Pennsylvania is going to be that he was almost assassinated here. And the South Node and the Sun, I mean, that's pretty indicative of somebody who's really going to get kind of pulled into a that kind of space. And it's very interesting. On the other hand, he has the Jupiter and the Moon opposite the North Node. So this is a place that he won in 2016, lost in 2020, but the weight of Pennsylvania has more gravity to him than just the election. It was a very scary moment in his life. This is somebody who is a master of being invulnerable, having a vulnerable moment like that.
Well, I was gonna, if I could say, Rob, to that point about Pennsylvania. So yeah, his Jupiter in Chiron in Libra, and his Jupiter, Chiron, and Juno in Libra actually conjuncts the Neptune of the state of Pennsylvania. And that Neptune meaning the collective, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you were talking about the Jupiter Moon, but his Jupiter squares the Moon of Pennsylvania. So there's definitely not everybody's going to be emotionally on board with what he's putting out there. And she does have, I think she does have a larger hill to climb because her Chiron squares the Mercury of Pennsylvania. But I think she's also got some positives in that her North Node trines the Neptune of the state, and her Mars actually trines the Sun of the state and sextiles the Neptune, the Mars does. So definitely that's what kind of my take on it.
Yeah.
I have to jump in and say, as you're speaking, looking at Kamala's chart there on the left with the Sun in this of the state, it's the working people, everyday life, and in the North Node of their direction, because it is a big working state, as you mentioned, Rob, with all the mining, and it's a hardworking Pittsburgh, for instance, and it's a lot of work involved, and that I think of in my head, and with Venus there too, the values, the basic everyday values. Yeah, it's interesting.
Michael, what do you think about that Mars on top of his Venus-Saturn conjunction? How would you think that would manifest?
I mean, there's a lot with this one, right? Because it's and also the Pluto on his series.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I were him, I'd be careful in Pennsylvania.
That's an understatement.
There's just a little bit of and then also series on his, not too far off from his ascendant. The hard part is it's funny, when he got shot the first time, I thought it was staged, because the way he looked at his hand, touched it, took the time and made a point of it. But then I realized afterwards, that's also the actions of someone who really could never believe that something like that could happen to them. What is this? Is this, did something, did something land on me? No, bullet just missed you. But it's interesting. I think with that Pluto part, with the series on there, with the nodal flips, it's interesting because both of them have the nodal flip, don't they?
Yes,
Yeah.
They have about the same nodes. That's what struck me. I hadn't realized that. Yep.
Yeah, and
John?
and they're actually on her angle too. Which
I think makes it a lot
That's
more powerful. That's why I think she probably has a little bit more of a chance. It's interesting, he plays that poor boy who really isn't, and it's funny how that plays over so well in places like Pennsylvania.
Well, you wonder with that conjunction that Pennsylvania has between Mars and Uranus, which is really dynamic. That's a dynamic conjunction. Right. And here in his, it would be really almost in the 12th. John, what do you think about all this?
I was looking at Trump's chart, and I'm fascinated by the Pennsylvania Pluto and Trump's Ceres, and then the Pennsylvania Ceres on Trump's ascendant. And I always think of Ceres as a working goddess. She's a farmer goddess, first of all, because she came from Rome. So she represented farming. So somehow the working class is involved here, and it goes really deep with Pluto. And he is, and something's in his face, or he's in our face about that. And as you know, the working class in Pennsylvania works very hard, and oftentimes they're not heard very much. So I think that's a really interesting dynamic. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say.
No, and to jump onto what John just mentioned, and then of course what Michael mentioned about how he relates to them. You look at his Mercury is conjunct the Juno, that relationship. So it's like this very strong. His Mercury is conjunct the Juno of the state. So like he's like trying to speak right to them, with that conjunction.
But so is Kamala's. Look at that. Yeah, Kamala, and hers is in the sixth house itself for the actual health, for your daily routine and everything. This is, again, you can see why this is a swing state. Shall we jump to the next, which I think is Georgia?
Can I say one more thing about Pennsylvania?
Yeah,
I just noticed. I think it's interesting the state of Pennsylvania has Chiron conjunct Vesta. It's like holding this wound or something.
Oh, yes.
I think that's
definitely.
Really interesting.
And Neptune. Yeah, it's enormous. And with their attitudes too, and having that, having their, which was pointed out by Justin with Neptune there, it could be a lot of illusion, or it could be overwhelm. It could be, it could go. It's hard to know how that's going to go. Yeah.
I mean, he literally held his wound in the state of Pennsylvania. That's a literal interpretation right there. I mean,
yeah.
What's interesting is it does give the Jupiter Chirons are all both trining one another for Trump with them. So that's pretty sweet in an air sign, I'd say.
Now,
I get your wound. I get where you're hurting, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and that's a big thing here.
But Kamala
exactly,
too,
exactly
I think,
to what John was speaking. Not being heard. Spoken to. Sorry, Sue.
No, that's all right. Thank you. I because I want to go on to the next, but
yes.
And I'm always then comparing. Well, what about Kamala? Because in Kamala's, it's in the 12th house, but in a sense, Maurice always feels that whatever's in your 12th house, you speak unilaterally to the whole unconsciousness of everybody, the entire collective. So it's oh boy, we will see on the next time in November what happens. Here is Georgia. Now, again, they're on the inside, the state's on the outside. And once again, maybe because they were not that far apart, look at Saturn again for Kamala. Very strong. Sometimes I had to check and see if these were correct. It's not that different.
And I love the ascendant, descendant, nodal response. That's really powerful, as well as the state's ascendant on her midheaven. That's really powerful.
It almost makes me think that there's like the entire state has this feeling like they should vote for Kamala. Like there's this, like, this is the right thing to do.
Well, her sun is conjunct to Neptune for the state. Rob.
Yeah. I mean, it's
that
makes so much sense. Like there is a feeling like, hey, this is the right thing to do. But the key question is this is about them and the state. This isn't about necessarily the election, so it's like, what are they going to do? Are they going to go with their gut and do what they feel is right, or are they going to be manipulated, or feel like they need to go a different direction?
Interestingly, both the sun and the moon are in relationship with Neptune there, depending whether it's the state or whether it's hers.
Having the courage to follow your gut and follow the dream, maybe.
What about Mars? Let's talk about Mars. Now, Mars is directly, within 5 degrees, but it's close to Trump's natal Saturn, Venus. But in Kamala's there, the states, how is that working?
Well, look at the issues that Trump continues to have in the state of Georgia. I mean, it's interesting. I find that Georgia, and it's very interesting because it's right there with that midheaven placement. Well, not really midheaven. I talk about more that Uranus, North Node, Sun, and Gemini. It really speaks to a lot of that with him because he does get both treatments in Georgia. In a way, he's been kind of stacking the courts. He's been stacking things. He's got people who are going to go in and say that the elections need to be done by hand. Already, some of those cases have been thrown out. And then he's got people who really, hate him. I mean, he almost ruined those two poor women's lives.
Right.
Right.
Well,
the stories he tells, the things that he talks about with people, and that's that Sun, Uranus. I mean, those are his highest planets, right? So he loves telling a story. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to point out you're a lot of what we're talking about is kind of where the mood of that collective is at, and especially for Georgia here, we're talking about that. And being that Sue brought up about the agitator of Mars, I was looking at the agitator of Pluto here, and and so you can kind of see with both their Plutos where they may have a problem with the state. Like her Pluto squares the state Mercury. So communications, trying to get that point across. And his Pluto squares the moon of the state. So it's like maybe they're not all emotionally there with them, but then
they're opposite.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, but I just throw that out there to see what you guys thought about that.
We've seen now two states where Pluto is on top of the series. And I think that series has a lot to do with abundance and how people feel about abundance. And Pluto being on there, I mean, I don't think that's a good thing for Trump in either regard. I think it's, there's an intensity about what can he actually bring to the table. And the way that his messaging has been working, I just don't think it speaks to that in the way that he would want it to.
And then again, there's that Mars kind of that similar placement, and I think I think whenever you have that Mars Saturn in relationship to someone, and it's also in the water sign, it's kind of in Cancer. It's like I know what you need more than you do.
Safety,
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
John,
let me tell you what you need.
And the fact is, he doesn't.
John, any idea before we cruise on?
I'm ready to go on to the next one.
Okay. Well, thank you, folks. It is interesting, too, that Jupiter is leading. It's right there on her ascendant. Now, it's with the South Node, but it's, as we know, that there's that. But then the North Node's leading to the 7th. And so it's like, yeah. Okay, onward. Here we have North Carolina. And here we have out of bounds Venus, Pluto, and Ceres, just as a comment. State. Well, here we have Jupiter conjunct the South Node, and what's opposite? It's but the North Node is well.
And so I just to kind of get it started there, her sun is also conjunct the Neptune of the state here, kind of like what we were looking at that other one where Rob was talking about. They know what would be the right maybe way to vote, but looking at possibly some challenges, his Pluto's actually now squared the Mercury of this state, and her moon squares the moon of the state.
Yeah, his Saturn being in his 7th house right there as well. I mean, I think the relationships that he kept in Saturn are going to be a restriction for him, especially if you've looked into the governorship race there as well and how that's gone. I think the company he's kept in North Carolina is going to be a net negative for him.
Well,
Kamala's having a go ahead, John. I mean, Michael.
That's right. I was going to say, if we think of that 12th house as being our unseen enemies, I really wouldn't want Uranus and Mars in there with my Pluto and my own Mars.
No.
It'd be interesting to see what might pop out of the closet, so to speak.
You know what I'm struck by
Good point.
is they both have not only about the same nodes, in reverse, but they also have the same Mars. Look at that, because in both of these, they're almost conjunct the state. So, John, any thoughts? We're time-wise.
Yeah, I like Kamala's Chiron on, I guess it's North Carolina's Saturn. So once again, having a heart for the working people of the state, which I hope the state can respond to.
Yeah, and to that point, John, you may know, I agree with you, but you may notice that her Chiron squares the Mercury of the state, so she has to really work harder, sadly, here with that, you know.
And Chiron is on her ascendant, and Saturn is on her Chiron. I do not think. I mean, and it's a southern state, and she's a black woman.
They can't see her. That's right. They have difficulty
Let's
seeing
just say,
her.
like right out the bat, there's an inherent bias already she has to deal with that he doesn't even have to remotely
and
even
Jupiter's
address.
right there.
I think that fits the narrative as well of North Carolina, that both candidates are going to have problems there.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, we're leading on. We have Michigan. And here, if we can see what bounces out, once again, Saturn and Neptune seem to be in Kamala's something to talk about. But
that's
Mars
exact, by the way. Her Neptune is exact, the Saturn in the state, and the Mars is exact degrees here in conjunction.
Wow.
That's crazy.
21 degrees.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiron in the 12th house that is going on for her. The biggest story in Michigan is going to be is the Muslim vote going to break for her after the Israel action? That has been the question. And Chiron being in the 12th house of the collective unconscious, is that and the ascendant being there as well. Are they going to be associating her with that? Are they going to be able to make the decision to break her away from that all of the Israel issues that she has going on there? And that is a large voting bloc there, especially democratically, and that's going to have a huge influence on this election.
And also, why doesn't she just claim it and do the right thing? That's the thing that's really kind of surprised me. She's I don't know if she's like kind of held back by Biden's policy or the whole democratic process, the way the Democrats have been approaching this with Israel. But I mean, I'm sorry. Something's not okay here, and it needs to change.
Yeah. She's clearly been trying to ride the line between being a presidential candidate and still being the vice president.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
It is a tricky one. And here,
that's Gemini there.
But I think if she could speak to it, I think actually if she could really speak to it and own it and
own
had
the
some
Mars.
friends who,
Own the Mars.
Own the Mars. But I'm saying more own the fact of what Israel's been doing has been wrong. And that shouldn't be celebrated, and that that we need to be making sure that Palestine is being taken care of, and all the other people in the region. Because we're just creating another powder keg there, and by the absence of not speaking, we're speaking.
And interestingly, of course, right in Michigan's chart. Now, remember, they don't have anything out of bounds, but it's an Mars opposite Mercury. And so we have that conjunction that's exact in Kamala's opposing. But we also have with Venus an exact it's my glasses. No, it's not that close to Ceres. Well, we're supposed to take a break. I'm thinking.
Can I say one thing about Trump's chart here really quickly before we jump away from Michigan? Is that his Saturn is in conjunct the Mercury of the state. So there's an imbalance there. There's an imbalance in his chart between Saturn and Mercury.
Yeah. Well, we just got the news. We don't have to take a break. Let's finish up. Okay. We have Wisconsin. Now Wisconsin has a Mercury out of bounds. And look at this. She's got my goodness, an exact moon
Pluto conjunction. Yeah. Her moon is exact degrees as the Pluto moon conjunction in the state. Yeah. I think that's positive.
That stopped everything there.
I think that's really quite beautiful. Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
And of course, then
and Jupiter, Venus. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Hello.
Oh, a love story.
Hello,
Thank
love story.
you.
And it's actually Jupiter, Venus for him too, but Saturn's involved.
Because they have this similarity with their.
That's so bizarre.
Yeah, the thing about it is he's got that Uranus Sun conjunction on the Mercury of the state. So it's like that he is resonating with some people there with communications, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. Well,
and the ascendant descendant match is actually also really for Wisconsin.
Yes.
I mean, that's always helpful because they kind of understand one another's.
He speaks their language. Yep.
So with this Nevada, I was talking with the guys about this before we jumped on, but the Nevada is that out of the 7 swing states, this is the only one that Trump lost in 2016. So it's an outlier. Nevada's an outlier. And I was like, what is it about Nevada and Trump? And he also lost it, and he's never won Nevada.
Well, I listened last night. There happened to be a show on, the talk shows and whatnot. Bob, my husband, listens to them. And it was reminding that in Nevada, they have McCain and they have Haley. Both people very much like her. And he has not been friendly with McCain. And that is a potential problem with his swing state. With the people.
Well, that's that's Arizona. I think you're talking.
Oh, rats! Yes, thank you.
We're talking about Nevada.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
That's okay.
Another one of those southwestern states. They're all like it's all the same out here.
They're both still pretty popular in Nevada, though. Both of those candidates are, McCain and I'm sorry. There's kind of that Southwest coalition.
Oh, you know what? He did go bankrupt there. Remember, he was in Las Vegas. Thank you. I've got the right state now, right? Sorry, folks. But he did go bankrupt. Go ahead.
But focusing back on the chart of why maybe he's never won this state, there's 2 particular really important squares or injunctions. His Mars squares the moon of the state. And his sun is in conjunct the moon as well. Just throw that out there. So there's an imbalance. It's like he may not even kind of feel like, resonate there with that. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? But that's the way I would look at that. There's an imbalance in the way the relationship.
Also, Nevada is actually an urban state. Most people live in Las Vegas, and Las Vegas kind of follows what California does. So often Nevada trails California in a lot of things. It'd be interesting to look at California and Nevada's charts together. I'd like to see that.
Well, look at one near conjunction he has, and that's Saturn with
I couldn't find any really good conjunctions there. This is the only state he doesn't have any conjunctions with none of the planets see each other here.
Well, that could be a problem because, again,
Mars,
he
Uranus
did go
is 1 degree.
Early on when he did go bankrupt there, which is now many years ago, he probably upset a lot of people that are so involved with, who knows, with the contractors. I don't know what the word of mouth reputation is there, but maybe he doesn't connect Pluto with the South Node in the 9th. That I don't know.
As John was saying, though, a lot of these workers work on the Strip, in the casino industry, in the service industry. And, the last thing I think a lot of those people want to vote for is a casino boss. And that's what he was. I think that there's just, just from a purely realistic standpoint, I think they see through him in Nevada more than they will in other states,
And she's got a lot going. I mean, the Mercury is conjunct. And the Neptune is conjunct the moon. Her Neptune is conjunct the moon of the state, and the Mercuries are conjunct.
I will throw out a monkey wrench, though, here, because I do want to go on to the next. But their Mars is conjunct, within the his North Node, and that. So that's that.
Sun is Uranus too.
Yeah.
But I like that idea of the casino. It replicates the idea that he went bankrupt and maybe it's not trustworthy. There's some kind of manipulation with the shadow side of Pluto.
Yeah.
Well, okay, Arizona, and then we'll take a break. We have Okay, we have the McCain people here. Yes, and Bale and Haley, Haley people.
Pluto on the ascendant. Whew.
Yeah.
That
She
can go either
changes.
way.
Yeah,
can
she's
go either
somebody that's
way.
always changing then within their consciousness of identity, whether that's good or bad.
Chiron on the midheaven, that's huge. I mean, just those two alone. I mean, in a way, they're very powerful aspects if they're used properly, but it also can go south when not used properly.
But he has Chiron in the 7th there, which in Pisces, what is it doing?
Well, probably some illusion or fantasy about what he represents, or and part of that relationship.
I could also see
Yes.
it manifesting as it's a state where they aren't necessarily voting for Kamala; they're voting against Trump.
Yeah, she has a T-square with the state. Her Mercury and Moon square the Uranus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a tough state. It was for Joe Biden in 2020. I mean, there's still a lot going on in that state as far as the legal implications for what happened in 2020. So, I mean, this is just it's a hotbed state. I think this is going to be the tightest state, honestly, of the swing states, and you can see it in the charts. I don't think the state of Arizona is happy with either candidate.
And the population is such, like Hawaii here. Well, for they're both Aquarius states. No, we're not, but they are. But they have mostly a transient snowbird population. So the people that facilitate there vote elsewhere. They're not really the backbone of who makes a lot of the choices. They use services, but then they...
Especially a lot of the Canadians when it comes to Arizona.
Yeah.
That too.
I know it's interesting. I never expected this discussion to go so much into Ceres in this show, but I love it. But it's interesting, Ceres being out of bounds here, that he's got that Mercury on the Mercury for the state is on his Ceres, because we were talking about Ceres earlier.
And his Mercury is out of bounds. Oh, no, pardon me. That's reversed. Yeah, got it. Yeah, their Ceres. Yeah.
Hard to tell what's going to happen, whatever the case, when the moon is out of bounds. It can be a very, very interesting. I think we might see something we didn't expect from Arizona either way.
And then we have to look at Saturn, which you're bringing to my attention. And of course, Saturn's with Neptune. And of course, it's in the moons. So it's a play back and forth. They're actually in mutual reception. So it is a little bit about who's going to be more secure, mama or daddy, and where are my foundations, and who has my back.
Right.
Well, shall we put a close? And we will be right back, folks, because we have more. We have it with the United States. And we will get through this, I pray. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back with Michael, Rob, John, and Justin. While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the Yang period of Libra, ruled dually by Venus. By leaving the lower hemisphere of the self, the energy of Libra enters the arena where the completed self meets the other than self to form a relationship based on partnership. As a cardinal air sign on the descendant angle, represented by the equinox of equal light, Libra's energy learns through comparison and relationships, with the intention to integrate duality and polarities.
This is Martha Norwalk. Every Sunday morning, beginning at 9 a.m., thanks in part to the Ananda Institute of Living Yoga, we cover the world of animals. This week, October 27th, it's an encore presentation. Join us for our last behavior training and healing Sunday with me, and talk with your human or animal loved ones on this side or the other, personal awareness, coaching, and general psychic stuff. Join us for Martha Norwalk's Animal World, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. to noon, right here on Alternative Talk, AM 1150.
Talk Cosmos brings insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for the soul growth with hour-long programs every Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific on KKNW. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel and Facebook page. While you're there, make sure you click the like and subscribe buttons so you get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. And to find out about upcoming programs, sign up for the newsletter at talkcosmos.com. So grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
Miss a show on KKNW? Check out 1150kknw.com for podcasts of many of our programs. That's 1150kknw.com.
Okay, we are back again, and we're going to go again, folks. This is Michael Bartlett at Core Michael, Justin Crockett Elzie at justincrocketelzie.com, John Chinworth at skypathastro.com, Rob Passetti at Deep Earth Astrology, and me, Talk Cosmos. This is going to be a quick thing. If there's something, if anybody has a talk right away, I think I've covered it, but Michael Bartlett, you can find him on his YouTube channel. He's a master metaphysical astrologer, and Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And he's written books, Mavericks, Astrological. And what's really wonderful is that Michael and Justin have a podcast that they've been working on, The Relationship Guys. And they take two people, pivotal, and really go into it very dynamically and creatively. It's strong with a lot of good information. Any comment? No? Okay.
We just love it. We just did our 11th episode. We've got our 12th one coming up. No, we've got our 11th one coming up next Tuesday. So this Tuesday.
Good. That's youtube.com at The Relationship Guys. Justin is an archetypal Yodish astrologer, and he has an Instagram, Astrological Yogi, where he does a monthly Mars forecast, a weekly lunar forecast, and Ask the Astrologer series. And that's at YouTube. And he also has youtube.com at Justin Tiger. I had to look that up. I added that. And his email is justin.elsie@gmail.com. And of course, he's with The Relationship Guys. But in addition to that, Justin is featured on quite a few other astrology things. He's on Talk Cosmos, Astrojam, a quarterly, and we're going to have a really extravaganza, whatever, 2025 ahead at the end of the year. And with Liz Mouchette, who has Elizabeth Liz Mouchette on her YouTube, he does several. He does a full moon forecast, monthlies, astrology forecast, and Chiron asteroid series, which means I don't know when you have time, because you also do once a month with me on the new moons, which will be next week. Did you have any? And then you have this talk coming up on December 8th.
Yeah, right, with the OPA. Yeah, we're going to talk about saving symbols. So thank you.
Yay.
So go to OPA, Organization for Professional Astrology, and join. And if you either be a member, listen to this. If you're a member, it's free, along with about 12 others. It's a good library. And we have John Chinworth, who has SkyPath, and his email is archerstars@gmail.com. And there you can find out about his services of consultants. And should I go on?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. And Deep Earth for Rob Passetti, who does natal astrology, green astrology, vibrational astrology, and of course is working on his tarot set.
We just got the proof in, so that's exciting. We're on pace for that. And then another interesting announcement is that Linda Berry and I have been working on an exclusively vibrational astrology conference for the past few months, and we just locked everything down. So the next time we should have, the website, the sign up. We've got some great people coming. We're expanding that out. So yeah. We're definitely going to involve Talk Cosmos community in that venture. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on. We're excited.
It is exciting. I know Linda commented on various things that I'm participating with, but that's such good news. And our
Yeah.
next show, folks, will be November 20th
Mhm.
after the elections, but just within Chiron. So it's a whole nother picture. Thank you, Rob, and your tarot. We'll look forward to it. For me, I have videos that feature myself. I'm with Liz with the dwarf planets. We have a series. We have a second one coming up. She's been on vacation, but it will be happening. And also just to remind folks that vibrational astrology is so fascinating. It's quarterly, like Astro Jam, and listen to it. It's all about this season, and it's such a story that comes up with what's important and how we're talking. And generally, it's to anyway, you listen, you'll understand. We had a fascinating last week with Pluto's last gasp in Capricorn on planet Buzz that really, as we finish this month, it's still not finished. It's November 11th when it goes back into Aquarius for 20 years. And next week is the Scorpio new moon, inventive camaraderie actions. It's like, it's so nice because the eclipsed our bad relationships. Now we get to enjoy the good ones. Well, we want to get on with our show because we're talking about Pennsylvania again, but this is in relationship to the United States. Now, in this case, the United States is center for all 7 states because we're going to see how a Davison works around it. And a Davison, and that's where, which is a chart that's with a combination, like a composite, but it has specifics to it. It has all the details so you can progress it, do whatever. And what that is we took election day at the state's capital and the state itself, their constitution, not constitution, but when they joined the United States. And it may not be the same as the capital today. So if you see a difference, it's because it's not the same. At any rate, if you go into it, because you will notice up above, there were the states, the capital, where the state actually joined I'm doing too much teaching. Let's get on with this. Okay. So we have here, then this happens to be Campion's chart in the middle. That's why it happens to be his example, 370 in the book. But at any rate, so it's a 12-degree, the Sibley chart, Sagittarius rising. And on the outside, we have Pennsylvania state from 1787, December 12th. And it was 10 o'clock in the morning. Thanks to Justin helping me learn the times. Well, right off the bat, look at that 7th house. Quite a few of these have a strong, let's look at the houses that are really important so we can get through these. But the 7th house is huge. It is in our natal chart with this particular chart, our independent state chart. And there we have Jupiter conjunct exact our Mars. There,
yeah, I could see why Pennsylvania is a swing state. It really kind of represents, I think what really jumped out to me, the wow factor. I'd be curious what you guys think, but was the Mars and Mercury conjunction in Cancer there. And then of course the Mars Jupiter conjunction, it really makes sense to me that how Pennsylvania kind of represents that wide diversity of the country,
Mm-hmm. And just being a lifelong Pennsylvanian, there's definitely an attitude like, we are important and we need to hold space for the rest of the country. The Liberty Bells here, the Declaration of Independence was signed here. We need to be the responsible caretaker. And I think you see that in the Mars Cancer energy. Where we're kind of taught that in school when we're in elementary school is this you're from Pennsylvania, you were the founding capital was here, you are a caretaker of the Declaration of Independence and the Liberty Bell. So you see that a lot in the in the attitude of Pennsylvanians.
Vesta right on the descendant.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at that. Vesta, where it is the hearth, in the mythology, you put all the gods and goddesses, and that was a protection, the flame, never-ending flame. I can see that. And conjunct Chiron, which is with the U.S. independence of liberty, in your daily life. Like you can live as you want in your daily life, but yet maybe in Gemini am I heard?
Well, and I always find Uranus Chiron conjunctions to be very powerful. That's a healing aspect, and it's almost like we heal ourselves through Pennsylvania, or Pennsylvania leads the way towards healing, I think.
And we're talking about elections. I mean, Pennsylvania is usually a pretty good bellwether as to which way an election is going to go historically. It's pretty much the case. I mean, if he didn't have Pennsylvania in 2016, he wouldn't have won. It's very interesting that Pennsylvania, and it's, what is the name of Pennsylvania? It's the Keystone State. It's that block that holds the rest of the states kind of in place. So I'm not surprised at any of this.
Yeah, 19 delegates. Well, before we go on, John or Michael, do you have a comment?
There's an echo with Mars and Uranus together. Uranus being the ultimate Aquarian planet, this being an Aquarian country, and have Mars there defending that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Mars and Uranus are in red and blue.
Well, we shall find out. Georgia, again, U.S. on the inside, Georgia on the outside. And again, we look at that 7th house. Wow, wow, wow. It's the one-to-one relationships. Everything about me, us with our tribal Cancer personal protection story. And I mean, just one framework of Cancer. And then with their Gemini sibling neighborhoods, along with, again, because they were so close, when they began, I think that's why, just a year apart.
7th house, I'm thinking of, you have to think about the other, negotiating things out, because we know when it comes time to count the votes in Georgia, they're saying it's going to be a lot of problems. So a lot of, diplomacy is going to be needed.
And what can you trust? Pluto with all of that in Gemini there, this Davison that is a combination of theirs. You'd think like they're trying to figure out what's the real truth. Which story is right? Who's deceiving me?
Usually I don't like seeing the Mars-Pluto combination there, but I appreciate at least that they both are Mars-Gemini. So at least there's a shared understanding already. So if Mars can negotiate, it is in Gemini. I mean, so that is really helpful. So, but just, I think it shows that, the opportunity for conflict.
I think the hope is there, like right next door to that is Neptune and Venus, the dream of the woman president, right? Something new. In Cancer, let's nurture, let's heal.
Intriguing.
Jupiter, Sun.
Yeah. And
it's hard to call. It's just really hard to call because there's so many planets.
We were talking about Ceres before, and what really goes to me is that Saturn conjunct the Ceres of the nation there. So there's some level again of responsibility and social concern.
Yep. We have about 3 minutes, folks. North Carolina. Yeah. And look at that. Pow, pow, pow. That 7th house again. Now, not all of these are 7th house, but again, we can maybe quickly say North Carolina, it's the same package. It's a wow. Let's move on. Michigan. Now, suddenly the sun is over here in the 1st, and it's almost opposite. Now, that's a distinctly, and again, they don't have any out of bounds. I got to remember that. Whether that makes a difference. But do you see something that we can talk about in a minute or 30 seconds?
I think with all of this, I mean, the most important thing that is happening is this Venus out of bounds that's going to be occurring, and this is for, everybody. And, our values kind of are going to be odd. And the question of values and how do values operate within a system that is not in bounds is going to be kind of the whole story that is going to be happening with all these. And listen, we go from planet to planet to planet. Venus, especially Venus in Cancer. I mean, those are tidal values and they're going to be out of bounds. Like, how weird is it going to get?
Yeah. And Jupiter right there on the sun. Oh my gosh. We have Wisconsin And we can talk a little bit. Wisconsin has Mars right on the north node with Pluto, my goodness, and Chiron. That's strong. Here, let's go flip through
Jupiter
these.
on the ascendant in Sagittarius. That's brilliant.
Yeah, Nevada, and now it's in the 11th house. It's the group. We were wondering about Nevada, but here it's going to be the networks, perhaps the values of everything, and then that 12th.
In mundane astrology, that's the legislature. That's kind of
And
interesting.
last but not least, Arizona. And Arizona here, back to the 7th house. Amazing.
Venus
And-
conjunction.
Oh,
New moon.
woo, both.
Moon.
Oh my goodness. And here I put down, just for people, which I don't know if you can see it, where the sun moons are. And as we said, politics. Penalty for refusing to participate is that you have inferiors ruling. So let's just join, be glad, and thank you, everybody. Well, on to the elections and vote, vote, vote.
Thank you for joining an insightful conversation on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Minahan and her panel of guests awaken consciousness by connecting soul growth patterns with astrology's energetic cycles. Be sure to tune in next Sunday, 1 p.m. Pacific Time, to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.